Let's talk about David Miscavige. The guy has run the Church of Scientology like his own private, razor-wired magic kingdom for decades now. We are talking about a man who assumed total control in 1986 after the founder, L.Ron Hubbard, died, and he has never looked back. He controls billions in tax-exempt assets. He commands massive compounds that most of us will never see. Take the secretive 500-acre gold base near San Jacinto. It comes complete with motion sensors, perimeter fencing with outward-facing spikes, and, get this, eagle's nest sniper posts. And then there are the people. He controls the daily lives of the Sea Org, the dedicated paramilitary workforce of the church. These are folks who sign legally unenforceable but psychologically terrifying billion-year contracts. A billion years. To the outside world, David Miscavige is this sharp, intense, perfectly tailored guy commanding the stage at those huge Hollywood-style gala events, standing shoulder to shoulder with Tom Cruise. But when you talk to people who actually used to be right there in the inner circle, the ones who managed to jump the fences or escape in the trunks of cars, which is totally normal church behavior, by the way, you start hearing the same quiet, persistent questions. Is the man at the very top living a double life? One that goes against literally everything he demands from everyone else? Look, speculating about anyone's sexuality isn't really what we do here. Being gay isn't a scandal. It's 2026, nobody cares. But when you are the absolute dictator of an organization that has spent decades labeling homosexuality as a dangerous perversion straight from the founder's own undisputed writings, well, then the hypocrisy becomes something worth looking at. You have to ask, what happens when the architect of a prison finds himself locked inside it? To understand why this is such a massive deal inside the church, we have to look at the foundation. You can't just talk about half the doctrine, you got to look at the whole thing. Back in 1950 and 1951, L.Ron Hubbard wrote Dianetics and then Science of Survival. He laid out this thing called the tone scale, basically a numerical chart ranking human emotion. At the top, you've got serenity of beingness. But down at the bottom, specifically at a 1.1 on the scale, is a category he called covert hostility. And according to Hubbard, 1.1 is where homosexuality lives. He didn't mince words, folks. Hubbard explicitly described people at 1.1 as perverts, claiming they were physically ill and completely untrustworthy. He wrote that these subversive types, these skulking cowards, should be handled ruthlessly. His exact words, they should be institutionalized or disposed of quietly and without sorrow. Nice guy, right? That idea never went away. It's baked into the DNA of the church. Because Hubbard's words are considered source, meaning flawless, unalterable truth, Scientology cannot change its stance on homosexuality without admitting its founder was wrong. And if Hubbard was wrong, the whole billion-dollar house of cards comes crashing down. So they enforce it, aggressively. They subject members to grueling auditing interrogations over same-sex feelings, basically psychological conversion therapy. They push people into arranged heterosexual marriages. Take Rachel Hastings Adair. In 2004, she joined the Sea Org, talented filmmaker. She actually caught Miscavige's eye and became his personal camerawoman. She knew all his insane demands for hair, makeup, lighting, all of it. But Rachel had a secret. She realized she was gay. And when she finally brought this up, asking for help, the response was chilling. The church's ethics officers didn't try to help her. Instead, an ethics officer literally pulled Rachel into a physical closet to interrogate her. She was heavily pressured into an arranged marriage with a man and told explicitly, "Whatever you do, do not tell David Miscavige." She eventually escaped and went straight to the FBI. Imagine enforcing that system day after day. Imagine sitting at the very top of that pyramid, demanding absolute loyalty to Hubbard's writings, while harboring those exact same feelings yourself. You couldn't come out. It would mean the tech doesn't work. So maybe the response is to double down even harder, to become this absolute caricature of aggression and masculinity. Mike Rinder spent decades as one of the highest-ranking executives in the church, running their intelligence branch. He was Miscavige's right-hand man, and Rinder describes Miscavige's private behavior in excruciating detail. Rinder says Miscavige would routinely fly into terrifying, unprovoked rages. He would scream at senior, middle-aged executives, calling them, well, I won't read the whole list, but let's just say it was a string of highly graphic, sexually charged, homophobic slurs, right in front of everybody. He'd even pantomime supposed sex acts in front of the whole group, like it was some sick stand-up routine to degrade his staff. When you hear that from multiple people who were in the room, you start to wonder if he's projecting just a little bit. And that brings us to the elephant in the perfectly tailored room, his wife, Shelly. They got married back in 1982. Shelly was right there in the high-level operations for a long time, the first lady of Scientology. But around 2005, things started to crack. Defectors say Shelly looked terrified, running on no sleep, constantly stressed by her husband's erratic rages. The tipping point? Miscavige left the base to go to L.A. While he was away, Shelly noticed the executive structure was a mess, so she took the initiative to reorganize the org board, their leadership chart. But in Scientology, nobody supersedes David. When he came back and saw his wife had reorganized the structure without his explicit permission, he erupted into an apocalyptic rage. Shortly after that, Shelly vanished. She wasn't just demoted, she was erased. Her last confirmed public appearance was at her own father's funeral in August 2007, nearly 20 years ago. Years later, Leah Remini filed a missing persons report. The LAPD closed it within hours, saying they checked on her. But ex-members still have serious doubts about her freedom. Reports point to an ultra-secure compound near Twin Peaks, California, run by a branch of the church that digs underground vaults to survive a nuclear holocaust. Normal stuff. The real question is why she is there. If she just reorganized a management board, you demote her. You don't erase your own wife from the planet unless there's something structural that needs protecting. She shared his private quarters for decades. If the man at the top is living a lie, Shelly is the one who would know. Inside Miscavige's immediate circle, things get even weirder. Former staff describe a hyper-masculine setup. He surrounds himself with young, extremely loyal male aides who handle every detail of his life, laying out his clothes, making sure his environment is flawless. And there's the physical aggression. Defectors have testified that Miscavige would physically assault his male executives, hitting them, choking them, tackling them to the floor in bizarre wrestling matches to assert dominance. All while maintaining this obsession with flawless personal presentation. Custom suits from London, perfect tan, perfect hair. Meanwhile, his wife has been absent for 2 decades. Experts in human psychology will tell you, this entire setup screams aggressive overcompensation, the kind of violent posturing you see when someone is terrified of their own internal conflict. Now, let's be clear. We don't have leaked explicit videos. We don't have a smoking gun. What we do have is a massive collection of consistent, terrifying fragments from credible defectors. And if you're wondering why a smoking gun hasn't leaked, you have to understand the whole. Starting in 2004, Miscavige essentially created a private prison camp for his top executives on the Gold Base. He took a set of double-wide trailers and locked dozens of the highest-ranking people inside, put bars on the doors. They slept on ant-infested floors. They were fed a literal slop of blended food scraps. They were forced to physically fight each other and confess their crimes against Miscavige. When you have a private prison camp, when you weaponize people's deepest confessions as blackmail, when you have billions of dollars to hire private investigators to harass anyone who speaks out, the silence makes a lot of sense. The whole machine is engineered to protect the man at the center. The irony here is pretty brutal. This is a religion that promises, quote, total freedom. Yet its absolute dictator, a guy with unlimited wealth and total control, might be trapped in a psychological prison by the very doctrines he uses to control everyone else. He might be a man utterly terrified of his own shadow, bound by a 1950s homophobic doctrine written by a pulp science fiction author. It explains the absolute secrecy, the violent reactions, the ruined lives. The truth is rarely a single explosive moment. It's a mosaic built from the pieces left behind by the people who managed to escape. We'll keep listening for new fragments, because in this world, the most dangerous secrets are always the personal ones sitting at the very top. Stay sharp out there and stay safe. This one's for your eyes only.